You're listening to All Things Video, the podcast dedicated to uncovering the past and charting the future of the online video ecosystem. You're listening to All Things Video. I'm your host, James Creech, and today's guest is Jasper Donat, co-founder and CEO of Branded. Jasper, welcome to the show.
Hey, James. It's a pleasure to be here, and greetings from a rather wet and rainy Singapore.
Sounds like normal Singaporean weather then, huh?
Well, it's also, I'm English, so I have to get the weather into the first sentence of any conversation. But yeah,
no,
it's pretty normal. It'll be sunny in an hour.
Exactly. Very good. Well, you're in Singapore. I'm in LA. This is the first time we're doing a video version of All Things Video. So it only took me, 5 years to live up to the name and finally embrace the video format, but really excited we get to do this.
I'm honored to be your crash test dummy.
There we go. So you mentioned you're a Brit, by background. So tell me the story. Where are you from originally? How did you make your way to APAC?
Born in London, North London. Left school quite early to go out and start working. I was selling houses originally, probably the best job ever. And then left to go backpacking. I'm still on my year out from school. Came home, my mother had arranged me, without me knowing, to meet someone in the advertising industry. Met them on the Friday. I was working for them by the Monday, having promised never to work again. Got into the broadcast industry, was working for a network called Eurosport for a few years, which was a lot of fun in the early 90s, just at the start of satellite television and kind of launching channels and stuff. And then Rupert Murdoch bought Star TV in Asia, and my boss went out to work for Star. I got the call saying, "Do you want to come and live in Hong Kong? Work and live in Hong Kong?" I said, "No, I'm 25. I own the world." But I went out for an interview for a weekend and thought, "Hey, I'm 25. I have zero responsibilities other than a mortgage payment. Let's do it." So I promised my mom I was going to go for 2 years. This was in 1995. I still promise her I'm here for 2 years.
Just a little bit longer, Mom.
Just over 26 years later, I think. And,
wow.
And yeah, so we were working for Star in a really interesting time for the satellite TV industry. Originally for Star Sports, which is now Fox Sports. They merged with ESPN. We came down to Singapore in 97. And then there was a wonderful music channel called Channel V, which was like MTV for Asia. Which had launched they had also launched. And so I went back to Hong Kong to help run that. I ran all the sales, marketing, business development. And we were launching music channels. It was, I would say, like working for MTV in 1984 when it was launching. We were launching music channels around Asia and just having the most fun imaginable and getting paid for it. But, working
awesome.
in places like India, China, the Philippines, Australia, Vietnam, Malaysia. It was a lot of work, but it was so much fun. And that carried on till 2001, I guess. And then I left, and with my partner at the time, Michael Denmark, we set up a company called Branded. We had very little idea what we were doing other than we had amazing networks. We had the ability to open doors for people in this part of the world. And 19 years later, we're still doing that. We're still very much connecting people. So it's been a long transformation, but yeah. It's been a lot of fun.
Very good. Well, I want to dig into a few pieces there. Starting off with, what was it like being in your mid-20s in Hong Kong in the 90s, right? What was it like as an expatriate for the first time?
Someone far cleverer than me said it's like being at university with money. You literally have no responsibilities other than your rent and your tax. You're not living with your parents. So we used to say it's so much fun because you could eat chocolate for breakfast. But you work hard and play hard, and you make friends. I've always said that the friends you make as an expat are better than the friends you make at home because they're your family. And everyone looks after each other. It's just that little bit more. And so, yeah, friends for life, experiences that just go on for life. Yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful time. You're 25 years old and you're living in a foreign country where the bars stay open all night, and yeah, you can eat chocolate for breakfast. So, probably that's the name of my memoirs. But yeah,
and Hong Kong is pretty cosmopolitan, right? So a lot of expats, a lot of obviously English speakers. Is probably an easy introduction to working in the region. But I'm sure there were still a lot of cultural differences, a lot of nuances about coming from the UK and landing in such a new place.
Yeah, I mean, it was pre-handover, so there was the British connection. But they used to say that China was Asia, Hong Kong was Asia light, and Singapore at the time was Asia super light. And that was pretty close to the truth. But it was a very, very soft landing, very easy landing into the Asia Pacific markets. But also learning how different everywhere in Asia is, every single country, every single culture, every single language, the nuances within each country as well, and the different languages and cultures and stuff. And so yeah, Hong Kong was a fairly soft landing. I mean, I said this to someone yesterday, actually. My one regret in life right now is, as a 25-year-old, I didn't learn Chinese. Whether it was Mandarin or Cantonese, I didn't learn it. Now, you didn't have to in Hong Kong, because most people did speak English and business language was in English. And I think if I was in Beijing or Shanghai, you have to learn Mandarin. You have to immerse yourself in the culture. And so, I had a very interesting conversation with my daughter recently. She speaks fluent Mandarin because she's learned it since she was 2 years old in Hong Kong.
Amazing.
And she realized that her mother and I don't speak Chinese. And she's like, so why don't you speak Chinese? You make me do my Chinese homework. Why don't you speak Chinese? And the answer is because we were too lazy to learn.
Yeah.
Is the reality, right? We didn't have to, but we didn't. And so I do have this one regret that I wish I had learned Chinese. And so if I was 25 and had to do it all again, I would seriously consider going to Beijing or Shanghai just for that very reason. Because I mean, Chinese is becoming the lingua franca around the world. It's it's second most spoken language. But yeah, but at the time you didn't think need to. I think you can get home in a taxi, you can order a beer, and that's kind of what you needed. But yeah, I wish I'd learned more.
Yeah, maybe Brits suffer from a little bit of this as well, but I think Americans we're lazy, right? There's, like you said, there's no pressure to learn another language, and so when I travel, I have a little bit of basic Spanish from when I was growing up and taking classes, but I wish I had been a better student, because it would have served me well in my career and just in life to be able to speak another language. And once you know two, it's easy to pick up a third, et cetera. And that's something that my fiance and I talk a lot about. It's like, when we have kids, we want to absolutely make sure that they're exposed to other cultures and learn a second language.
Absolutely. Bury the kids in language. I think it was fairly arrogant back in those days that people would, and it wasn't just, people from all over the world would walk into China and start speaking English to everyone in their meetings. And this is even before email, but you'd still send faxes and stuff in English. And I used to say this to people in the UK and America. Imagine someone from China walking into a meeting with you and just speaking Chinese and expecting you to understand them.
Yeah.
I think that was really arrogant that we expected this kind of level of English and stuff. And so, even though Hong Kong at the time was the gateway into China, yeah, it's like I said, I wish I'd learned Chinese. Now Hong Kong is now, it's going through its own issues, but it's the gateway from China. And you look at what's happening in Shenzhen. You've got Tencent, you've got Alibaba, you've got Huawei, you've got these are massive Chinese companies literally on Hong Kong's border.
Yeah. So
if you don't speak Chinese now, you've got very little reason to be there. There are a few industries left, but really you need to be able to speak Mandarin in Hong Kong.
I don't want to get too far afield, but while we're on the subject, what does the future of Hong Kong look like as China asserts, more pressure and obviously an intention of bringing it under a single system again? What does that mean for the future of business? And all of this is happening at a time when we've got this digital Cold War heating up between China and the US. blocking TikTok after years of China blocking Western apps because they wouldn't abide by censorship and other government policies. What does the future hold given all of these various forces at play?
That really is quite literally a $640 billion question. I mean,
here's a loaded question. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think anyone can answer that right now.
Sure.
We were actually looking at doing a virtual event on the new laws in Hong Kong and what it means for media companies, because no one knows, but genuinely, no one knows. I don't even know if the Hong Kong government knows what the actual meanings of the law is. I mean, I'd need to fact check this, but I believe there are over 60 articles in the new law, and the Chinese government have explained, I believe, one. Now, again, this is from reading the newspapers and stuff. So, but I don't think anyone knows the answer to that question just yet, as to what it means for Hong Kong. What it means for the rest of the world. I have co-located now between Hong Kong and Singapore. I still have a home in Hong Kong. My daughter was born in Hong Kong.
Okay.
I pray for its future. It's a magical place. There's nowhere like it in the world. It has gone through a lot of problems of late, but Hong Kong really matters, and I do hope it does have a habit of bouncing back as an extremely resilient population. We've had, in the years I've been there, I think there were 2 recessions. You had the financial crisis in '98, you had the global financial meltdown in 2008, and we had SARS. So 3 extreme situations, and in all cases bounced back. Now, this one's pretty bad, and you've got the protests and COVID now. So, but I hope Hong Kong's resilience shines through.
Yeah. And if nothing else, my first reaction was it's a big boon for Singapore, right? Much like Brexit has been such an opportunity for Amsterdam and various cities, particularly in Germany. It seems like there's going to be an influx of commercial activity now happening in Singapore, because it's really become the new gateway to Asia, particularly Southeast Asia. They've done a really good job of positioning themselves as being very Western friendly, business friendly type of environment.
Yeah, but this has got nothing to do with the COVID situation. It's got nothing to do with the protests, the political situation. Singapore, many years ago, decided that they wanted to be the media hub, the entertainment hub for Southeast Asia. I would say probably in the early noughties, they made this decision and delivered on it. They attracted, like I said, we moved down here in 1997 for a bit because ESPN Star Sports was here. Viacom moved here. Disney were here. Fox moving here. So then Google set up its headquarters, its Asian headquarters here, or Southeast Asian headquarters. Facebook, Twitter, they're all here. And they have very small representative offices in Hong Kong, which are more ad sales based, more product focused, and then local offices around the region. So the government in Singapore, the EDB, the Economic Development Board, did a very good job to persuade people to come down here. So that had happened already. I think the political situation in Hong Kong may have escalated that somewhat, but it's really, I mean, like I said, Hong Kong being the springboard into China and then now the gateway out. Hong Kong was I think suffering a little bit of a confidence crisis and not confidence, sorry, identity crisis. What did it stand for? It says that it's Asia's world city. So there's a question mark as to how can Hong Kong maintain that claim pre-political situation, pre-COVID. So when it comes back, is it genuinely Asia's world city, or has Singapore stolen that mantle? And it's a very good question. For the media and entertainment business, Singapore is de facto the Southeast Asian hub. They are becoming the Asia Pacific hub. And recently they said they want to become a global hub. And the government in Singapore, when they say something, they tend to do it.
Oh yeah.
And they tend to do it quite successfully. So it's interesting to see. It's an interesting time. interesting time to be in Singapore, interesting time to be in Hong Kong. Interesting time for everyone.
Very good. Well, kind of returning to your origin story, you started your career kind of in ad sales and kind of, getting a rapid fire introduction to media and entertainment. And, I was curious, just as an interesting aside, perhaps, what was maybe the worst job that you ever had? Was there anything that was either challenging or a tough situation, or just any funny stories along the way?
Good question. Okay, so something that doesn't appear on my LinkedIn profile. I have to remember this question as something to use in the future. What have you put on your LinkedIn profile?
No.
When I left school, just into my 17th birthday, November 1984. These were the days that you could get the Evening Standard newspaper in London, and there was, 3/4 of it was classified job ads, and you could be an office assistant, you could be a sales assistant, you could be there were jobs everywhere. And I got my first job. Forgotten this. My first job was standing on street corners in London, selling insurance policies to women. Life insurance to women. I can't remember the name of the company. I'd have to search my memory bank. By the way, when you turn 50, you tend to forget things like that.
That's right.
But it was selling insurance, and it was terrible. But I seemed to be really good at it. What we were doing was we had to go up to women and say, hey, do you want to have a successful future? And then take their details, and then someone would phone them and try and flog them a thing. So we were just hanging out, not chatting up women, but stopping women on street corners and talking to them and having fun. And I remember being on
Not so sure you could get away with that today, but yeah. Oh, I lost your audio. Oh, what was that? Just 10 seconds back.
Yeah, it was it was just life insurance for women. So we were, we weren't. It was a lot of fun just chatting to women on street corners. But I remember being on Oxford Street, the corner on Oxford Street. I haven't told anyone this. I was standing on a street corner in Oxford Street. There was a building next to me that was getting sandblasted. So there's all this huge noise and this sand everywhere. And it started raining. I'm 17 years old and just thinking, WTF am I doing here? And I was with a Danish guy called Christian, and a Spanish chap came up to us out of the blue and said, would you like a job in Spain? And selling property. And we said, yeah. And literally, with no joke, the next day, Christian and I were at Gatwick Airport to meet this little Spanish guy again. And I remember saying to my mum, I need a suit. I'm going to Spain to work. And she said, where in Spain? I said, I don't know. And so we went out and we bought a suit in Muswell Hill. Okay. And I was at Gatwick Airport with this guy, Christian, the next day. And we were handed flight tickets with our names on them. And it was, and I didn't recognize the name of the airport. But anyway, so we got on the plane and we flew. And I remember landing and saying to someone, so where are we? And they said, you're in Lanzarote. And Lanzarote is one of the islands of Spain, and very famous for British tourists and party animals going to Lanzarote. In the 80s, it was Lanzarote. And we sold timeshare and literally standing on street corners, stopping British tourists and saying, would you like to buy a timeshare for a week in Lanzarote? And it was terrible. It was so much fun. It was so much, because again, 17 years old in Spain with friends, they gave us an apartment, didn't really get paid. We made more, actually made more money. Wow, this really is memory lane. And we got recruited to do a Fanta ad, and we got paid more money to lie on the beach whilst they were shooting this Fanta than we did selling timeshare. And I remember, my girlfriend at the time was in London, and I missed her, and it wasn't working out. So I wanted to fly home, And
Yeah.
this was way before anything like 9/11 or something like that. So, early 80s, mid 80s. And I remember flying home to London on a colleague who was a woman, on her ticket, in her name. I flew back to London as her. And so I think I was about a month in Lanzarote trying to sell timeshare and just having the time of my life. But I missed home, so I came home.
Your
and
poor
that's
mother.
what got me selling houses in Highgate.
Okay, so you had a little real estate experience from your stint in Spain.
I did, and a suit.
Yeah, there you go. You went no questions asked. Tomorrow, sure, let's head to Gatwick.
Because you can, or because you could. I'd say.
Very good. So, and then you mentioned, you spend all this time in the media and entertainment business. You were working across Asia, and throughout the region, and then you team up with this business partner. How did you meet your business partner? I think you said his name is Michael.
Yeah. So we were both in parallel universities, living in Hong Kong, working in the media business. I was on the TV side of things. He was working on more of the print side of things. He was running newspapers in Hong Kong, and we both found ourselves footloose and fancy free. And a friend of ours had suggested that we get together, and we had breakfast or lunch. We had a breakfast at a restaurant called Oscar's. And by that afternoon, we were actually trading as a company. His name is Michael Denmark. Okay. The initial name for our company was Double D Media, which we thought was very funny and smart and what have you. That then transformed to D2, and then it became branded. We had the idea that branded was a much more appropriate name than Double D Media.
Probably.
So we were trading that day, and
amazing. So it's just those people where it's like when you meet one of those people and just instant connection, and you had all these ideas.
Yeah, it was like kind of, who do you know? Who do I know? We like I say, parallel universities, but an amazing network between the two of us. And at the time, people wanted to bring their businesses to Asia, or they wanted to bring entertainment to Asia, or they wanted to bring TV shows to Asia and stuff. And so we started just opening doors for people and connecting, just learning as we went along. I don't think we ever had a business plan. We certainly never had funding, or not at that stage anyway. And we borrowed a desk or two off a great friend called Ed Bean at Siren Films, and ended up kind of just expanding and getting our own offices and just kind of growing through that. But yeah, just I think still with the same attitude and spirit of learning as you go along, and learning from mistakes as well.
Yeah, amazing. And I noticed that one of those companies you helped make the transition or grow their efforts throughout Asia was a little company called YouTube, right? In 2013, you helped them launch the first FanFest event. So for those who aren't familiar, what is FanFest, and where did the inspiration come from? Sure.
So I wouldn't necessarily claim that we helped YouTube grow in Asia, but YouTube and Music Matters launched the same year. I'd like to think that they both had the same meteoric growth.
There we go.
That might be a complete lie. So no, the YouTube fan. Okay, so we in 2006 we launched this wonderful event called Music Matters, which was basically a conference designed to connect people within the music industry. At the time, music was going through its Napster moment. People were stealing music, copyright infringement, all that kind of stuff, and all the press was negative about the industry. But the music consumption was growing exponentially, and people in China were listening to English music. People in England were listening to Hindi music. People in India were listening. It was just, the world was flattening digitally. Sure. And so we put this event together called Music Matters, and I mean, there's a lovely story there. Michael and I really were making this up as we went along. We had worked for other conferences, but we thought we can do this ourselves. Of course we can. How hard is that? And anyway, we put it together, and there was a lot of stress. It was at the Four Seasons Hotel in Hong Kong, and Edgar Bronfman Jr. I'll get to the YouTube thing in a minute. Sure. Edgar Bronfman Jr. was our first keynote speaker. At the time, he was the president chairman of Warner Music. And he was flying in from New York just to do the keynote and then fly back. Wow. And we were really nervous. Warner were subject to a lot of speculation that EMI were going to buy them, and there was speculation that Warner were going to buy EMI, so all this stuff, and we were really worried he wasn't going to come. And it was our first event that we were doing ourselves, and he showed up at the Four Seasons, and so in the car from the airport. So Michael and I thought it would be appropriate that we went and met him from his car and took him up in the lift to his suite and stuff. And we had the headphones in and all this kind of stuff. And so we met him, Mr. Bronfman. Hey, thank you so much for coming to the event, up to his suite. Anyway, we did the event, very successful. It's now celebrating. We're into our 15th year this year. We can talk about it later. But we were like kind of high-fiving that we'd made it. Edgar Bronfman had keynoted at Music Matters, and and a couple of weeks later, we got a lovely handwritten note from his assistant saying, "Thank you so much for looking after Mr. Bronfman. He really enjoyed his time in Hong Kong, and especially the 2 security guards you gave him when he arrived at the hotel."
Only the finest, only the best for him. Huh?
I mean, talk about going from like here to he thought we were security guards. But yeah, so that was Music Matters, and that has grown over time, and it's a wonderful, it's still a wonderful opportunity to bring the music industry together. We have music stars. I mean, there's stuff all over behind me about it. And from there, we just grew into, we created a thing called Digital Matters. And then Music Matters Live, which was the music festival part of the event. And we've been called a mini South by Southwest, and really mini. We had maybe 50 or 60 bands coming from all over the world to perform. And YouTube had come to us, I think, in 2011, when we moved it from Hong Kong to Singapore, and YouTube at the time came to us and said, "Hey, would you like to stream your festival live?" And we said, "Yeah, of course we can. How hard can that be?" Yeah. And we ended up having to, it was wonderful actually. We ended up working with the Singapore Polytechnic Media Department to get the students to produce it. So they could produce a live festival online. We were Asia's first streamed music festival. We had to borrow an office from a friend, the McCann Erickson office in Clarke Quay. The festival took place in a place called Clarke Quay. We kind of just bolted it together.
Sure.
I remember our tech director, who we still work with now, a week before the event, was standing in the middle of Clarke Quay saying, "So where's the internet then?" And we had to find an internet provider to deliver a cable, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so we did it, and it was wonderful, and we learned a lot, and we worked with students. It was just, it's just a great experience.
Yeah.
And then a year later, a friend of mine at YouTube called Ben Grubbs, who's well known now, he and I were sitting down in Hong Kong having lunch, and he said, "Could we do Music Matters Live for YouTubers, for influencers?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course we can. What are they?" Now at the time, YouTube it was Psy and dogs on skateboards, and what very few people in the world knew about 2012, 2013 was this amazing new group of people that have since become YouTubers or influencers or KOLs. But there were people like Bethany Mota and Lily Singh and Ryan Higger, who all the time had about 1 million subscribers, and these amazing audiences of people. And so we put together this idea. Originally, we tried for Video Matters Live, YouTube. Anyway, so between Ben and I, we created the YouTube Fan Fest. And the idea was simply to take online stars offline, put them into a festival experience, and then put it back up online again. And we produced the first one. It was at Music Matters in 2013. It was at the Ritz-Carlton. So we did it in a ballroom. And then it just grew, and we were very lucky to, I think, be at the right place at the right time. It was a great partnership with YouTube. It became very, very big. We produced or co-produced 58 of them around the world, as far away as Sao Paulo, Toronto, Jeddah, closer to home in Jakarta, in Manila, in Taipei, in Hong Kong, in Tokyo, in Seoul, and just getting to learn about this amazing group of influencers and the relationship they had with their fans, and just how different it was, fundamentally 180 degrees different to the traditional entertainment business, and just learning about influence and learning about fan connection and how important that was, and learning about how they, how collaboration, how that mattered, how 1 + 1 equals way more than 2. So influencer A works with influencer B, they share their audience, and everyone wins. Whereas in the old school, it was like, I'm pop star A and you're pop star B. We're competing for a share of wallet.
Yeah, finite radio plays, finite attention or spend. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, occasionally you'd get duets, but then you'd end up with who owns it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we just had the most amazing time touring around the world with these amazing influencers and just learning, and it became extremely large, very, very successful. So YouTube took it back in house, but we really had an amazing learning experience. Like I said, working with these amazing influencers, but also streaming content live. In these days of COVID, where people aren't going to venues and what have you, we can look back and say, well, for nearly a decade, we have been streaming hundreds of events live, and so that put us in quite a good place. But on the back of the Fan Fest and understanding influencers, we also got to understand fans, and we also got to understand a lot of issues that were going on with fandom out there. The majority of YouTube fans at the time, and for the stars that we were working with, the majority of the fans were teenage girls. And so we got a really interesting insight into the psyche and makeup and some of the issues that were going on in social media and for teenage girls and what have you. And also, as a father of a daughter, we got to really understand a lot about going very deep into the lives of and the psychology of being a teenage girl. It's really, really hard. And with social media overlaid on top of that, it became a fascinating insight for us in terms of can we create an experience, content and events with a purpose, and that can really help this amazing group of people. And so we created a wonderful event called It's a Girl Thing. And this was taking social stars, not just YouTubers, social stars, female social stars, and putting them on stage. And kind of in like a TED for Teens format, we would have them perform, we would have them have fun, and then do a chat show and talk about their lives. And the audiences were predominantly teenage girls. And when you see these influencers talk about their lives and how they've got to where they are today, they start off, hey, I'm here in whichever country, I have this many million followers, I'm a successful influencer. And then they talk about how they got to where they are. And it was extremely emotional. It was for everyone, not just the audience. I mean, for the production team as well.
Really?
Because
Wow.
you see, we saw these women, amazing women on stage, opening up their hearts and telling their story about how they got to where they are. And you had stories of bullying and racism and body shaming and anxiety and what have you. And what you saw in the audience was this transformation where you'd have 5,000 girls in the audience kind of all of a sudden going, you mean I'm like you? You mean I can be like you? I can succeed like you? We were getting feedback on these events on social media but feedback from attendees is saying things like, there was a wonderful comment that said, "Thank you for making me realize I'm normal." And, you know, and just kind of inspirational and very empowering. So, so, you know, we've continued that kind of, that frame of working with influencers, yeah, so it's been a very interesting transformation for us in this whole kind of online space.
Yeah, how incredibly powerful, right? To be able to share those stories, connect people, you know, IRL as much as, you know, when you're streaming these events, but to connect those dots, right? Make these young women understand that their role models also experience the same types of challenges that they're going through, and that it's okay to talk about it, and it's, you know, you'll overcome it. But just hearing the stories sometimes is the first step towards, you know, oh, she was successful and I can follow that path.
Yeah, and for everything that Branded does, or we try and always have a purpose. There's always, you know, we do all these matters events, and, you know, music matters, sports matters, digital matters, gaming matters. And if you have the word matters, if you have the name matters in your title, you've got to walk the walk and you've got to talk the talk. And so we do things for, you know, for example, I mentioned Music Matters. With all these bands that perform, we're not just asking them to turn up and perform and disappear. We do an academy. We do a Music Matters Academy, and they get to attend for free, and they get to meet some of the best names in the music business, who give them, you know, information and mentorship and learnings that you would never find anywhere about how to succeed in the music business. And even more important in the days of COVID. And I mean, we used to call it the Music Matters Academy because you can't Google this shit. But then, you know, when we started streaming it live on YouTube, it was, someone had suggested that we stop using that phrase. But it's, you know, if you've got someone like Leo Cohen, who runs, you know, the head of YouTube Music, or Steve Lillywhite, who produced, I think, 8 YouTube albums, or Bob Ezrin, who produced The Wall, and countless other leading people in the music industry talking about their stories, how they made it, and then their insights into how to succeed. Artist managers, Johnny Wright. You know, I'm going to forget everyone who's been at Music Matters now, but you know, real opportunities. So we always try and have a purpose. It's really important, and I think more important today than ever before.
Yeah. One of the threads I've noticed throughout your history is, you know, figuring it out as you go along, whether that's programming the first conference to, you know, launching this as the partner over a lunch meeting. So, you know, have you just always been entrepreneurial by nature? Have you always considered yourself an entrepreneur?
No, because I've never looked up what the true meaning of an entrepreneur is. You know, figuring it out as we go along, could that be seen as making it up as we go along? Look, I think what I love doing more than anything is connecting people, whether it's face to face or whether it's on in a virtual hangout like this, or that's in my DNA. That's Branded's DNA.
Yeah.
What we then like doing is coming up with ideas that we think will work, and going out and selling them, and trying to work with partners like the Fan Fest, or like Music Matters originally partnered with the IFPI, Sports Matters with the Singapore government, and just seeing what works, and really learning from success. But also, it was Gary Davey, who was the president of Star TV, always taught us to celebrate failure, and really learn from mistakes and share those mistakes. And I always say this to my team. It's like, you know, if you make a mistake, share it. If you can't do something, tell us. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And so kind of learning from mistakes, but also, yeah, just kind of having ideas and trying to make them a reality. So if that's entrepreneurial, then yes. If that's stupid, then yes.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, but it's you know, we try and do things differently. We try and listen to people. We often do things that aren't for the economic reason. It's more this purpose. And I think there was a wonderful phrase the other day. The marketing director of Dole Foods, a chap called Rupen Desai, he said that you can't have purpose in your message unless it's on your P&L. And I guess we try and deliver purpose for pretty much everything we do.
Yeah. So what has that meant in this time of coronavirus as you move all of your events virtual? How do you still reflect the purpose? How has programming changed? What is the future of live conferences, live events? What does it look like?
So if you'd asked me that question 4 or 5 months ago, I would have said, yeah, we'll all be back it's all gonna be fine in September, no problem. Everyone's gonna be traveling again. Because we went through SARS, right? And
sure.
And with history repeating itself, everything was not back to normal, but semi back to normal by August, September that year. And there was money back in the market and things were almost back to normal. So if you'd asked me 4 or 5 months ago, I'd have said, yeah, back in September. Also, if you'd asked me 4 or 5 months ago, or if you told me that Brandon was going to be a 100% digital company, I probably would have punched you, or at least would have laughed at you and poured a beer over you. I would have had an argument. But now I'm absolutely proud and delighted and excited and scared that we've announced that Branded is 100% virtual. And it's not just by default. We were halfway there already.
Sure.
Like I said, with things like the FanFest, It's a Girl thing, and Music Matters. So we have pivoted. By the way, the word pivot is going to be our swear word at All That Matters this year. So we've transformed and we've evolved into an online, purely online company. Now, one day people are going to be able to travel again. People are going to want to be in ballrooms and in music venues and stadiums and what have you again. And when they are, we'll be the happiest people on the planet. But until then, we find ourselves in, I think, and possibly the most exciting time for a lot of the live entertainment business. It's a scary time. And I've said this quite a few times as well. We talk about my time in Asia. I wish I was 25 years old again.
Yeah.
Because all of those amazing opportunities we had with the launch of satellite television and launching in local markets and stuff like that, that's all happening again online with the events industry. So many opportunities for success, but also so many learnings for things that won't go so right. And so, I wish I had another 26-year runway in front of me to learn about this new life that we're in. And we have been listening to a lot of people about what they want from live events. You've got the consumer side of things and you've got the business side of things. The consumer side of things, artists have all gone online. The incredible amount of content that's being produced from home. So we took Music Matters. The Music Matters team were amazing. They just suddenly started talking to all of our old alumni, artists who'd performed at the festival before, and said, "Hey, can we help? Can we work with you? Can we just broadcast live content from your houses?" And literally on a mobile phone, they were recording from their bedrooms and their living rooms, and we called it Music Matters Live from Home. Not the first live from home content, not the last live from home content.
Sure.
But it was really nice and it was interactive, and we had the artists could chat with their fans. And we ended up working with the Singapore Tourism Board and YouTube and Facebook, and really upgrading the content to work with artists in collaborations. So we had Singaporean artists working with artists from around the world, and Simple Plan got involved. And we ended up producing 7 episodes of Music Matters Live from Home extremely professionally, which delivered 10 million views on YouTube and Facebook, which was remarkable. I mean, this is something that we'd never heard of, for some incredible artists, and giving them global exposure and what have you. Simple Plan were wonderful mentors to these artists as well. But creating collaborations between Singaporean and Filipino artists, Canadian and Indonesian artists, and these are collaborations that would never normally happen. Now, we talked about it in 2013 with the YouTube Fan Fest, where 1 + 1 equals way more than 2, and we've done it again now with more traditional kind of music artists. So that was really exciting, and we're gonna launch season 3 of that at some stage. But then at the same time, we're looking at our conference business, the B2B side of things, and thinking how are we going to make that work, because again, people aren't traveling, people aren't allowed in ballrooms, let alone want to be in ballrooms. And so then we kind of started thinking, how do we, we have this wonderful, so Music Matters evolved into Music Matters, Digital Matters, Gaming Matters, Sports Matters, and Marketing Matters. So 5 different events.
Wow.
4 or 5 years ago, we said, so why don't we merge the streams and put them all together into one, which became a wonderful event called All That Matters. And it's one of the only opportunities for all of these industries to come together. And, looking at the sports industry and the music industry and the gaming industry and what have you, the first time we did it, I'm going off on all sorts of rabbit holes.
No, this
anyway,
is great.
The first time we did it was a little bit like organizing a school disco, because you had the sports industry in one corner and the music industry over here, and you could tell them all really, the sports industry had button-down collars, music industry had spiky hair and tattoos, the gaming industry had never seen sunlight, and they were all kind of really bashful, and they all knew each other in their own industries, but they didn't know. And it was all kind of like, who's that over there? And by the end of it,
how do you foster the connections, the interplay between the groups?
You just stick them in a room and make them meet each other. And the sports industry will realize that the music industry were coming out of their Napster moment, and they were the canary in the coal mine, right? So the music industry was starting to make a lot of money again through streaming. Sports industry was about to go into its own Napster moment, which it's unfortunately witnessing now. But what could they learn from music, and what could they learn from gaming? And so for 4 or 5 years now, we've had all these wonderful industries coming together to really learn from each other. And at different times, different years, one industry may be ahead of the other. And obviously everyone's looking at gaming at the moment as the real kind of success story. And what can they learn from gaming? Because gaming's been online fundamentally since it started, since Pong. So All That Matters usually is a big, wonderful festival in Singapore in September. We have a couple of thousand delegates, and we have these 50 bands performing, and all of a sudden we can't do that. And we had a soul searching moment of how are we gonna do this? And then it was like,
oh, I lost your audio again.
How's this?
Oh, now I got you back. Yeah.
So we've been streaming content for nearly a decade, but how do we do this for B2B? Now we're still learning, and we've produced 6 or 7 online sessions through the summer, and we've learned a lot. From those sessions, we've learned about how we're competing for time, right? People don't have, you need another excuse to look at your laptop. You need another excuse to look at your phone. Really? And so we've understood that perhaps online events now are competing with Netflix. They're competing with YouTube. We're competing for
video
time.
Games, everything.
Video games, email, WhatsApp, Instagram. So we've had to really do a lot of soul searching and working with a wonderful advisory board I've got 36 people on my advisory board, 50% female, 40% haven't been to the event before. And we've been asking them, what do we need to do for you to pay to attend an online event? Because if we can't get people to pay, then we need to put bread on our table, right?
Sure.
And so we've had a real exciting learning curve of data. You do something online, you get this thing called data. Who knew about data before? You could count people walking into a ballroom, and you could kind of gauge their interest in stuff. But now I know exactly how many people tuned into one of our events. I know how many of them stayed on. We know if they drop off, when they drop off, so you can kind of gauge why. We know how many people interact. I know how many people registered. It's wonderful. We've had 3,500 live views to B2B content, 6 B2B events. That's 7 times the size of a ballroom. We've had over 600 questions. You'd never have that many questions. For 6, you might have 2 or 3 for each session. We had 850 companies, individual companies register. You know, wow. It's really, really important. Now, it's not the 10 million number, but this is the B2B space. These are CEOs. Sure. There's not that many of them out there.
Yeah.
So it's been a fascinating transformation for us over a very short period of time. And now we're coming into All That Matters season, and we launched the event 2 days ago as a 100% online event. And I mean, maybe I could share my screen and just show 2 or 3 slides of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of we thought to ourselves. Let me just get this going. We thought to ourselves, what can we do that's different? We thought to ourselves, the internet takes down all geographic boundaries. People don't have to jump on a plane to Singapore. People don't have to book a room in a hotel. They don't have to take a week off work. They don't have to get jet lag. But they still want to meet people. Everyone we talk to, we say to them, why do you come to All That Matters or any of our events? And 99.999% of the time they say is to meet people. The program is extremely important. Having people on stage and the right people on stage absolutely is a hook. But no one sits in a ballroom for 3 days and watch it. Well, very few people sit in the ballroom for all 3 days and watch all the content. We know that they dip in and out, and then they do meetings. They're in the bar, they're in the cafe, they're at the epic pool parties we used to produce. But they want to meet people. So what we figured was, with this wonderful World Wide Web thing that we have out there, we have an opportunity to just take down the borders, invite more people than would normally come to the event, connect them with more people that would normally come to the event, and actually create something that, again, has a purpose. And purpose is absolutely the heart and soul of everything that we're doing with All That Matters this year. But we have a lot of competition. There's a lot of things called webinars going on. I counted, just the most amazing rainstorm just started outside my window. I've counted 125 invitations to webinars in the last 4 weeks, just by putting the word webinar in my search bar in my email. And I haven't gone to 123 of them.
So there you go.
And we have to, so we have to compete for space. We have to have a purpose. We have to be useful. We have to really kind of provide an opportunity for people to want to be there. So the theme this year is connections that matter. Everything we're doing is about networking. We have an amazing program with some amazing speakers, which we can talk about. But really, it's about the networking, and it's about the opportunity to meet people that you never would have met before. Our sub theme that we're not necessarily promoting so publicly is we're not another effing webinar, because we're not. We really are trying to do something different, and in doing that, we thought, what can we do that's different, because it's the internet, because it's the World Wide Web, that isn't another webinar? So we thought, well, mid-September, schools are going to be mostly back, but kids are going to be mostly still at home. And so why don't we turn this into a proper festival and invite our attendees, kids, for free? You know, we've been producing content for teens and kids for years. Part of all the online stuff we've been doing. There's always an academy. We've done the Digital Masters Academy. We've done the Music Masters Academy. We've done the academies at the Fan Fest. We've always done these, but these are in consumer events. So we thought, well, why don't we create content for kids? based on the program. So if we've got
Sure.
YouTube stars talking at All That Matters, then let's do something for teens on how to be a YouTube star. Let's do something for university students on how to get into the gaming industry, how to get into the music industry. I mean, more important than ever, career advice. We thought, let's make it really easy for people out of work to attend and join us and do sessions with all of our speakers on career, on how to change your career, how to rebuild your LinkedIn profile, how to find a job. So we're being useful with people who are finding work. So we've invented the Family Pass. We're calling it Family Matters, and we're doing content for under 18s, under 12s, and under 6s. And so if you register for All That Matters, your kids can come free. Now, whether that's also working with football teams and having players provide doing meetings and fan meetups, whether it's meeting gamers, whether it's learning about the gaming industry, whether we do workshops around mental health and well-being in the gaming industry. Gamers are athletes. People think that they're these teenagers who are jacked up on energy drinks. They are athletes, and they are suffering the same way that athletes do. So how do we do work? How do we be useful for the gaming industry? So we're creating some really, really cool content that wouldn't normally happen. You you go to a festival, you can take your kids, and you can come to All That Matters, and you can take your kids. So we're really excited about this. We're nervous as hell because no one's ever done this before, and again, we're all learning. But we think we're doing the right thing because we're providing a purpose and we're being useful. It's 5 days long. No one is going to sit there watching content for 5 days, but they might drop in and out for the content because we have a great program. But there are meeting rooms, there are networking sessions. You can see everyone who's at the event. You can meet people who are at the event, and then of course we'll have these fun sessions for kids. Why don't we have children's entertainment? Thunder. Why don't we have children's entertainment for under 6s as well? Because we can. And so we're really trying to have a lot of fun. And then finally, just something here that this is our content checklist, but it's also the event checklist. We need to tick these boxes, otherwise we're not going to succeed. And this is again from getting countless hours and hours of advice from a lot of amazing people. Well, eternally be grateful for. But is All That Matters, or is this content that I'm watching now, is it relevant to now? Does it really serve a purpose? Is it educational? Will I learn from this session or from this event? We need it to be looking forward. Everyone knows what happened behind. Everyone knows what the past looked like, but what's the future going to look like? So we're doing sessions called Reimagine. Reimagine music, reimagine gaming, reimagine sport. What's it going to look like in the future? And then finally, is it functional? And really, is this session going to help me now, today? And we think that if we can tick those 4 boxes as an event, and for each speaker, then we hope we're helping to build a model that might work for the future. We're also sharing this with all of our friends who also do online events, who also used to do B2B events, maybe used to be called competitors, but we're creating a market. And if we don't share this information, it's going to be a slow growth. So we're working with, sharing knowledge, sharing information, learning from our mistakes, learning from other people's mistakes. And who knows, as I say, I'm so excited about this, and I've never been so scared and nervous and honest about what might happen. So we
that
hope
means you're doing something right.
Well, I don't know. If someone said to me last year, how many people will attend All That Matters? I know that it's between 1,800 and 2,000. We know that number. If someone asked me today, how many people do we think are going to attend? If I'm honest, I don't know. I really don't know. I would like to think that we will beat that number, but we're expecting people to pay. By the way, last year it was $1,500 to attend. Now it's $99. And if you're out of work, it's $49, and there's content for you. If you're a university student, it's free up to a certain capacity. But we're engaging with universities to bring their students for career advice. And of course, as we said, kids come for free too. So
that's fantastic.
The accessibility to us is really, really important.
Yeah.
I think that's, I'm not trying to do this as an ad for what we're doing. I'm trying to do it, trying to show you how we're thinking and what we're thinking in this new space of online events, and how exciting it is. But we do need to get people to pay, and that's the biggest unknown of all.
Of course. Well, a lot to look forward to. So thanks for sharing the methodology and the strategy that goes into retooling, right? Pivoting, as you said. How do we take this conference that we've done for years and turn it into something virtual, but not just stick to the format and say, okay, we're just going to put this online, because that's not going to work. Let's reimagine what an online first event needs to look like and build it around the attendees so the audience will get something out of it. So that's incredible, and it seems like a lot to look forward to this year with All That Matters.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, and I think the future, I hope, we ran an image once of one of our pool parties at the Ritz-Carlton, which we said we're famous for, and it just said, we'll be back. We do hope that we will be back in a room with all of our friends. But it was Rory Sutherland from Ogilvy said, he can't imagine any event in the future not having a digital component. This has been a massively needed kick up the arse for all of us to get digital. And let's see what that looks like. The word hybrid is being thrown around a lot at the moment, and so we'll see. We will be reimagining the future of the events business.
Fantastic. Well, we're just about out of time, but I want to finish up with some rapid fire questions just to round things out. Let's start with predictions for the future. If you were, thinking ahead to what does the media and entertainment landscape look like over the next 3 to 5 years, what do you see coming next?
I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation amongst media companies. I think there's going to be a lot of huge changes is happening and coming. But in the event space, I think hybrid is the way forward. I hope that Dave Grohl wrote a wonderful piece in the Atlantic saying that everyone wants that festival experience to be back. We want to be shoulder to shoulder, sweating and having fun with people we've never met before. So I hope for that. I don't know when that's going to be, but yeah, I think the future is hybrid.
Awesome. And if you were starting a business in the digital media space today, in this environment, what would you do, right? Thinking as an entrepreneur, what's the white space out there? If you were that 25-year-old in Hong Kong now, what would you be thinking about? Where's the opportunity for innovation?
I think EdTech is suddenly really sexy. Every parent has become a teacher in the last 6 months, and understanding Google Classroom and Firefly and all these kind of things. So I think getting into EdTech in Shanghai or Beijing, learning Chinese would be my rebirth.
Very good. And Jasper, where can people find out more about you and more about Brandon?
At the moment, allthatmatters.asia is the website for the event. Branded.live is our website, and I am at Jasper Donat on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, everything. When you have a name like mine, it's quite easy to remember and spell wrong as well.
I bet. Well, Jasper, thanks again for walking us through your journey and sharing, how do conferences embrace a digital era, right? How do we build something new from the ground up? It's exciting to see. It's exciting to be a part of. And thanks for taking the time to just share your insights with our audience. It's been such a pleasure. It's been a pleasure an honor to join you, James. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. I'm James Creech, and this has been another edition of All Things Video. If you like what you hear, we hope you'll share and subscribe for new episodes. See you next time.